Hi, everybody. Nice to see you here today. Thank you for joining. My name is Sydney Nitzkorski. I'm a nutritionist, a registered dietitian, and a personal trainer and a fitness instructor. So most of what I will be talking about today is on nutrition. I'll get into some sports nutrition. We'll talk about basics of healthy eating, basics of weight loss, how to support exercise with food, pre and post workout. And please, if you have any questions, type them right into the chat, and I'll look at them at the end. I'm easily distracted, so if you don't mind, I'll get through the whole lecture so I can keep it nice and concise. I know you guys don't have all the time in the world, but I'll probably speak for about 35 to 40 minutes, and then I'll look at any questions. Okay, so just a little bit about me. I'm not a crazy strict nutritionist. I think it's really important to be very realistic, and that's one of the first things I'll say to somebody when they come to me for a nutrition session. If I can suggest the ideal diet, I can suggest the ideal workout for the week, but if it doesn't work for you, what's the point? So I really do think it's important to be very realistic in terms of food and in terms of exercise choices. So I never would ask somebody to completely give up something they love, even chocolate, especially chocolate. I have chocolate every single day, so do my two children. I'm okay with that. The amount is important, obviously, but I've worked with people. I've worked with a woman for years and years. I mean, honestly, almost 20 years. She will not give up soda, and so we just work around it. Would I suggest that she does? Of course, we've talked about it, but it's just not realistic for her. So I really want people to be realistic when thinking about what changes to make. Ideally, less ingredients are better. These are just some basics. Look for ingredients, look for foods that have less ingredients, 1 to 5. It's not a foolproof rule, but it is helpful. Along with being realistic, I never ask for somebody to be perfect. I just want you to be better in terms of your food. So maybe think about what you're willing to change and start with that. Along those lines, what is sustainable? It never helps. I've been practicing for 19 years, and I've worked with so many different people that come in so excited to make changes, and they're crazy strict and they take out everything, and then it's just not sustainable. And I appreciate the enthusiasm, but I've gotten to the point where I'll ask somebody, like, is that something you can really see yourself doing forever? That's really important. In terms of exercise, and like I said, I'm a nutritionist as well as a personal trainer, so I do a lot of exercise during my day, probably more than I do nutrition, maybe half and half. But finding the kind of exercise that you enjoy is so important. I could recommend my ideal mix of strength training and cardio, but if you hate one of those and you're never going to do it, or it's really torturous to get through it and not sustainable, then it's worth talking about. So why do we care about nutrition? The benefits are you tend to feel better, you have more energy, you tend to be able to live longer with less disease, in the best case scenario, and better weight control, whether it's up, down, or maintaining. All right, so just again, in general, components of a healthy diet. Carbohydrates should be the bulk of your diet, 50 to 60%. If you're somebody training for a marathon, that number goes up to 60 to 70%. But somebody who's working out actively, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour a day, carbohydrates should be 50 to 60% of your diet. Proteins are actually the smallest percentage, and I think that surprises a lot of people. I very often meet people who are eating a lot more protein than they need to be, and a lot less fat or a lot less carbohydrate than they need to be. So fat should be 20 to 30% and proteins 12 to 20%. Not that I ever expect you to be able to put that into your day in terms of knowing percentages, but just know that carbohydrates are the biggest and proteins are the smallest. So in terms of carbohydrates, of that 50 to 60%, half of that ideally should be from complex sources, so whole grains. If it's more than half, perfect. That's the best case scenario. Eat as much as possible, but it's okay to have some of the white refined flours. So at least 50% coming from complex sources. So a lot, that includes any fruits and vegetables, especially the starchy ones like sweet potatoes or corn or peas. Any bread choices should be whole wheat or multigrain. Any starch choices, ideally brown or wild rice, something like quinoa, whole wheat couscous. By the way, couscous is just teeny tiny little pasta. So plain couscous is just plain old white pasta. I meet a lot of people that are very surprised by that. And you can always get whole wheat pasta. Beans also can be included in that complex carbohydrate. It's so important to look at labels. Breads are really tricky. They should be a very simple thing. But if you can see on the one side, you've got enriched, unbleached wheat flour. And I feel like putting the word wheat in there is really tricky. That's just plain old white flour. On my screen, it's on the left. I think probably for you guys as well. That's white flour. On the right, it says whole wheat flour. That's whole wheat. It has to say whole in front of the wheat in order for it to be considered a whole wheat product. A lot of times you'll see multi-grain. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's healthy. It could be refined grains. A lot of times it is, but it's really important to look at ingredients. And it's not that you have to do that every single time. You do it once and then you know the products that you tend to go for in the supermarket, and it's a lot easier. In terms of fats, so 20 to 30% of your diet should be fat. The best sources are unsaturated. So that's olive oil, nuts, olives, avocados, omega-3 fats from fish. That's really the only animal fat that's healthy. 10% or less of your total fat intake should be from saturated sources. So those are red meats, poultry, the skin of poultry, or dark meat poultry. White meat poultry, perfect. There's no fat in it. It's a great protein source. Medium and full fat dairy, so cream, butter, cheese, whole milk. Again, being realistic, you're going to have some of it in your diet. That's totally fine. I would never take cheese out of my own diet or my children's or somebody I was counseling, but the amount of it is important. So you want to limit as much as possible those saturated sources, as well as any fried food or trans foods, foods with hydrogenated fats. And those tend to be found in processed foods. So I love this product. I don't get any money from them. I'm not a sponsor or anything, but I buy this all the time. It's called Earth Balance Buttery Spread. And I always recommend it to people. I think it tastes a lot like butter. It's the best that I've found. And when you look at the ingredients or you look at the nutrition on it, the fat and the calories are exactly the same as butter. So it's not helpful for weight loss, but it is really helpful to cut down on the amount of saturated fat. So anybody who's really anybody, I give this to my children all the time. They're 7 and 10, but I give it to them instead of real butter, and I cook with it as well. It cuts down the amount of saturated fat drastically, and that's helpful for the heart. So protein, 12 to 20% of our diet should come from protein. Unless you're a vegetarian, most of this can be from lean animal sources. So skinless poultry, fish, plant sources are great too. But animal sources are absorbed really, really well. It's very efficient for the body. Fish is by far and away the absolute healthiest. Obviously you want to look at mercury levels, but beans, skim or low-fat dairy, soy products are also excellent sources. And a really small amount of that, again, remember going back to fats, 10%. And I think I said 10% of fat, 10% of the diet, your overall diet should be saturated fat. So it's a really small percentage of fat coming from red meat. If somebody said to me, Sydney, I don't like red meat at all, how often should I eat it? I would say never. If somebody said I like it, but whatever you suggest I'll do, I would say once a month. Some people are fine with that. Other people are completely horrified and they'll tell me like, oh, I'm eating red meat, bacon, pork, burger 5 times a week. That's a far cry from once a month. If that's the case, I'd say, all right, well, can you do twice a week? It's a lot better than 5 times a week. It's not close to my once a month, but it's better. So that goes back to overall goals. Just how can you be better? Maybe it's not perfect, but start with better. And then over time, maybe it continues to improve. Complicated pie charts. All right, here's one I love. Pie I have eaten, pie I have not yet eaten. Here's something I ask people all the time. When I do a session, I'll have people literally draw this on their paper in front of them. And I just like the very simple visual of this. Half of your lunch or dinner, you could do it for breakfast, but it's a little bit hard to get this for breakfast. But half of your lunch or dinner should be fruits and vegetables. Another quarter should be lean protein, and the last quarter should be whole grain starch. Again, it's just a very simple way of making sure that you're getting enough fruits and vegetables. And when you do that, obviously it leaves less room for the other two, protein and starch, which you need, but you don't need in as big quantities. So it helps usually cut down portions and cut down calories in a way. All right, so just some general stuff in terms of lunch and snack suggestions. The best sandwich options: turkey, ham, chicken, roast beef, hummus, or veggie on a whole grain bread. Pretty standard stuff. You can get that almost anywhere. The worst sandwich options: an Italian hoagie that has a lot of that red meat, pulled pork, obviously red meat, burger. I'm fine with turkey burgers or a veggie burger, but not a whole, a red meat burger. And then tuna and chicken salad. The tuna and the chicken are wonderful. There's nothing wrong with the tuna or the chicken. It's the fact that they're chopped up with a lot of mayonnaise. It's the mayonnaise that becomes the problem. So if you're making it yourself, great, no problem. Maybe you can use a tiny amount or use some olive oil or some mustard to make it go a little further, or an olive oil based mayonnaise, smaller amounts of it. And also watch out for, a lot of times you see these veggie sandwiches that are just totally saturated with cheese or like a creamy sauce. That's also not going to be the best option. In terms of soup, a brothy or bean-based soup would be a great option. Watch out for the cream-based soups like broccoli, cream of broccoli or clam chowder, something like that. Bars. So I get a lot of people that will have a bar as a replacement for a meal or as part of a meal. If I'm really crunched on time, I'll grab a bar and a piece of fruit, like a cheese stick. I would much rather have a nice salad or a soup for lunch, but if I'm short on time, I'll grab a bar. And there's a huge variety of quality out there. So the ones I like the best, and this is by no means an exhaustive list, I'm not paid by them or anything, but I like Lara bars a lot, Kashi, TLC, Cliff Nectar, and Kind bars. I tend to like those because you look at the ingredients, you know what all the things are. They're very unprocessed. On the other hand, you can get these like really, really high protein bars that have 300-400 calories and 30 grams of protein. They also have 50 ingredients. It's for me, too processed. When you're getting a salad, salads are a great base, but you have to watch, you could put anything in a salad. You could put fried chicken, you could put things that are pretty unhealthy, huge amounts of cheese or a creamy dressing. So keep it more vegetable based. Obviously, it's great to have a protein in there. And if salad is your meal, a lot of times people forget to have the carbohydrate in there. So personally, what I do is I love putting rice or pasta on my salad, a small little scoopful or quinoa or something like that. Some people think it's weird. I love the taste of it, but have a carbohydrate with your salad, especially if you're going to work out later in the day or right after, or have a roll on the side. That's fine too. It doesn't have to be in the salad, but make sure you get the carbohydrate. I always encourage people to plan ahead. You guys know that days get crazy busy. And if you can, whether you're driving or just you have a bag with you, throw some fruit or vegetables in there, chopped up, ready to eat. If you have a fridge, where you're working, it's a little bit easier. You can maybe throw some yogurt or hummus in there as a quick little snack. Anytime you can incorporate fruits and vegetables into your lunch, absolutely do. And if your lunch is large, split it up so that maybe you have half of it at 12 o'clock and the other half at 3 o'clock as your snack. Even though it's the same amount of calories, it's helpful to split it up like that because you burn more calories every time you eat. So if you do that 2 times instead of once, it's helpful. It also helps to just pick your metabolism up over the day for your energy. So I always encourage people not to go into a meal starving. Plan ahead with snacks. So you want to find that sweet spot of hungry enough, but not so crazy hungry that you'll eat anything. Ideally, you should be hungry every 4 hours. So if you know you can eat a meal and not be hungry for 6 or 8 hours, that meal was too large. It doesn't help you at that point. It's just that next time all right, whatever you had was too big. In terms of overeating at dinner, I think this is a really common one. We eat something, it tastes really good, and we immediately go for seconds. I always encourage people to just, if you can, look at the clock, put a timer on your phone, just say, I'm going to wait 10 minutes. And then reevaluate if I'm hungry. I do this in my house all the time with my husband, with my kids. I will tell you, 8 times out of 10, the answer is like, actually, I'm not that hungry. You need your brain and your stomach to have a little bit of time to connect. And if you feel like, all right, I am still hungry, maybe that's the case, that's fine. Go for the vegetables first, and then go for the protein, and then go for the starch, rather than just eating because it tastes really good. And something that I feel like is a little bit hard to wrap our brain around is that even if a food is super healthy, maybe salmon and broccoli and brown rice, really healthy meal, if it's too many calories, your body will store it as fat. So even though it's healthy, it's great for your heart, perfect, you'll have good energy. But if it's too many calories, it's going to be stored as fat. So the portion is really important too. The choice is important, but so is the portion. Be prepared to keep as healthy foods on hand. If you don't have healthy food, it's nearly impossible to eat healthfully. I always encourage people to keep a bunch of stuff in the freezer. I always have my freezer stocked with fruits for making smoothies, especially in the winter when it's harder to get fruits that are in season, and maybe some frozen meals, and maybe some canned goods. So ideally, you're able to shop weekly to get those fruits and vegetables, but it's good to have a pantry and a freezer that are stocked. Keep your fruits and vegetables at eye level, or even washed and in a glass bowl on the counter that you see that it's sort of like in your face. I do this for my kids, and I encourage people to do this for their kids all the time. Kids open the freezer. If fruits and vegetables are at eye level, they're more likely to request it. My children will never ask me for an apple, but if I cut up an apple and I put it in a bowl and I hand it to them, 9 times out of 10, they'll eat it. So just being overly obvious with the healthy stuff, push that first. Usually, although again, it's not a fail safe, but usually less ingredients is better. Eat smaller, more frequent meals. I always encourage people to eat at least 3 meals and 2 snacks a day. But if you're somebody who's going, I only eat 2 meals a day, then maybe we can get it to 3 meals. And then maybe you add in some snacks as well, maybe not. As mentioned, should be hungry every 4 hours. If not, it means the meal you had beforehand was too large. Minimal to moderate amounts of alcohol, added sugar, and processed foods. Again, that's one of those, let's be realistic. What can you cut back on? What is a deal breaker? And to listen to your hunger cues. It's so hard to do. I believe that there's some interesting studies showing that at the age of 2, we start to override our hunger cues and just eat food because it tastes good. Babies will stop eating when they're full. By 2 years old, we stopped doing that. So I've had 42 years of overriding those hunger cues. So it's so important to try and tap into that. And every time you want to go back for food or you're going to eat something, you say like, why am I eating? Am I actually hungry? If you are, great, go ahead and eat. If you're not, maybe reevaluate. Is it because you're stressed? Maybe it's because you're dehydrated and you're actually thirsty. All right, I'm going to do a 1-minute movement break just to make sure you guys are awake. We're just going to stretch. The other movement break will be some posture stuff. So really simple stuff. Just take your right hand, bring it as far up your back as you can. So maybe you get to like your shoulder blade, maybe you're down by your hips, meaning your shoulders are tight. Doesn't matter. Either way, pull your right hand up your back and then head over to the left. All right, take this right elbow, really push it back to open up your neck. Take a nice deep breath here. Feel free to close your eyes. Big exhale. And then other side. Left hand goes all the way up the back. Pull the right hand. Head over. Close your eyes. Deep breath. Really pull that elbow back. And then relax. Both arms up towards the ceiling. Big inhale. Exhale. Just let the hands drop. Let's do a little neck roll. So imagine that you're tracing a circle with your chin. So look all the way up. All the way to the right. All the way down. To the left. And all the way up. All right, that's it. Minute or so. We'll do another one of these and we'll just do, again, 1 minute of postural work. Just sitting in the chair. Simple stuff. All right, weight loss basics. So you may or may not have heard this, but it's really important. It's the crux of weight loss. A pound of fat is worth 3,500 calories. So what does that mean? It means if you want to lose 1 pound, you need to somehow eliminate 3,500 calories. It's really hard. Actually, I should say it's impossible for me to look at somebody and work with them, and even knowing what they're eating and say, oh, you should eat this many calories to lose weight. It's an estimate. And sometimes I do estimate that, but I very often don't give people a number of calories to shoot for because I don't have confidence that it's accurate. And then even if I did have confidence in the number I'm giving, it's very hard for somebody to try and match that number. I'm not usually a proponent of writing down, recording your food. I think it gets really tedious. Sometimes I'll encourage people to write down one thing. Maybe it's just the dessert you're eating, maybe it's alcohol, whatever you think your biggest challenge is. Safe weight loss is 0.5 pound to 2 pounds a week. A lot of people, to everybody, wants to do this faster. And I cannot stress this enough. It's so hard for it to be sustainable when it goes faster than that. The reason there's a pretty big range there is because it depends on where you're coming from. If you said, Sydney, I'm eating, you tell me what you're eating, and my estimate is that you're eating 4,500 calories, it's probably doable to take out 1,000 calories a day and lose 2 pounds a week. Just to make the math easy, obviously, if we have 3,500 calories, and we divide that by 7 days in a week, that's 500 less calories a day for 1 pound of weight loss. So 2 pounds of weight loss is 1,000 calories less a day. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, 500 less gets you to 1 pound weight loss per week. 1,000 less gets you to 2 pounds. Depending on where you're coming from, that might be doable. If you said, Sydney, here's what I'm eating, and I estimated it's 1,700 or 1,800 calories, taking out 500 is not doable. It's just too much. So maybe you have to go down by 250. The idea here is to fly under the radar, not to set off alarm bells with your body. When we cut out a lot of calories, 500, 700, 1,000, 2,000 calories per day, the body freaks out and is like, oh my gosh, if this continues, I will starve. So the response is pull the metabolism down. That's really, really unhelpful for weight loss. I always want people to concentrate on total calories that they're taking in, and I will talk about it a lot. But it's not that I'm encouraging you to count calories. I think it gets to be too tedious. Some people get obsessive about it. And again, I never know how accurate people are being. So it's really easy math, simple to understand, difficult to execute. When you take in more calories than you burn, you gain weight. The opposite, you lose weight. When they're the same, it's weight maintenance. All right. So I always encourage people to think about their diet and say, like, all right, well, what can I take out? If you're drinking 1 can of soda a day, or some beer or some wine, that's about 140 calories, a typical soda. If you take that out every day, you'll lose about 1/3 pound a week. That's about 14 pounds per year of weight loss. A calorie is a calorie. So I always encourage people to have those foods, your general diet, coming from really healthy things. But when there's less calories overall, you're going to lose weight no matter where it's coming from. You want them to come from healthy stuff, but calories are the most important thing. So make 1 or 2 sustainable and significant changes. The changes have to be big enough that your body has a change in how many total calories you're taking in, but not so big that you set up those red flags I talked about to pull the metabolism down. So pay attention to calories, don't count them. Think about your hunger, think about what you're doing. So for example, if you're having pizza for dinner, a typical New York slice of pizza is 500 calories. If you normally have 2 or 3 slices of pizza, but you replace one of those slices of pizza with a large salad or a vegetable soup that only have about 100 calories, you save 400 calories in one day. That's almost to your pound loss per week. All right, here's just some examples of calories in typical foods. I chose really fattening foods, and I'm curious if this surprises you. So a Starbucks 20-ounce mocha with whole milk and whipped cream is 510 calories. Typical restaurant spaghetti and meatballs, 1,200 calories. 3 Blue Moons or a similar type beer, 510 calories. Deli tuna or chicken salad, again, this is because of that mayonnaise, not because of the chicken or the tuna, 900 calories. And a large movie popcorn, 1,000 to 1,300 calories. Here are some alternatives. You can go through them, but the 16-ounce cappuccino, 180 calories versus those 500 in the bigger, fattening, heavier drink. 2 cups of pasta primavera, 300 to 500 calories. You're saving so many calories. You can go through the rest, but it's just important to think about alternatives. And I always say you can do one of 2 things. You can either change the food. So instead of having a burger and fries, you can have a turkey burger and a salad, or you can change the portions. So instead of having a burger and fries, maybe you have half a burger and half the fries. I would rather you do the turkey burger and salad, but again, in terms of cutting out calories and in terms of being realistic, you figure out which one you're willing to do. Fiber is really important with weight loss. The less calories you eat, your body notices it. You tend to be hungrier, and that's what creates non-compliance. We go off the diet. We don't want to do it anymore. We're hungry. Nobody likes to be hungry. Fiber is really helpful. It's indigestible carbohydrates. Your body tries to digest it. It cannot, and then it goes through you. But as it's trying to digest it, you don't feel hungry. 25 to 35 grams of fiber per day is what's recommended. Beans, fruits, especially fruits with seeds, vegetables, whole grains, those all have high amounts of fiber. You can find cereals with huge amounts of fiber. Just one note though, you want to make sure you're drinking enough water, otherwise just increasing your fiber will constipate you. We'll talk about water shortly, right now. Stay hydrated. It's one of the most important parts of weight loss. The body mistakes thirst and hunger. It seems silly. You think you could figure it out, but the body just mistakes thirst and hunger. So when we're dehydrated, we think we are hungrier than we are. By staying ahead of that, you can figure out your hunger cues a little bit better. So it helps with portion control. Absolutely avoid liquid calories. It's harder for the body to get full from those, or for the cues to kind of say, oh, I'm getting full from 100 calories in soda versus 100 calories of actual food. So when people come to me, whether it's for weight loss or just energy improvement or overall healthier eating, one of the first things we'll talk about is water and dehydration. You will notice this if you're dehydrated and you start drinking a lot of water, it's the first thing that will make you feel better very quickly, within a day. Weight loss obviously takes longer. You're not going to notice it in a day, but water, being well hydrated, you will notice it that day. I'm exaggerating here, but when you're dehydrated, your blood is physically more thick. It's more viscous. It's more like honey instead of like water. So that's exhausting for your heart to pump all day long. You can also have electrolyte abnormalities. Oxygen is not delivered efficiently throughout your body. It is the fastest way to feel or see an improvement. Carry a water bottle everywhere that you go, unless you're in a situation where you just are not able to drink or not able to go to the bathroom for hours upon hours. If that's the case, and I meet people like that all the time, I would encourage them to hydrate before, stop drinking a few hours before you know you're going to be stuck, and then hydrate after. If you really have trouble with making sure you get enough water, you can set a phone alarm. You can take a little sticky note, put it on your computer. You can get a big picture. I think I've got a photo here in a sec. There's all sorts of water bottles that have little tick marks on them that help you remember, figure out a way to do it. In general, you need about 2 liters per day. Depends on how big you are, depends on how much you're working out, depends on how much alcohol you drink, but in general, around 2 liters. If you're sweating a ton, you need more than that. So here we go. A simple water bottle, just get a water bottle that you like. I always like one with a straw because when I'm driving, it's much easier. When I'm working out, it's much easier to drink. So just to summarize weight loss, and then we'll talk about sports nutrition. Calories are calories. Eat healthy food because it's the best thing you can do for longevity. But in terms of weight loss, a calorie is a calorie. 500 calorie deficit a day will get you to a pound a week weight loss. Now that's the science. That's what science tells us. I will tell you from my practice in the last 19 years, that is what happens in the beginning of a weight loss program, and then it slows down because you have to remember the amount of calories you need comes down as you lose weight. So as you lose weight, you actually need less calories. We'll talk about this, but the best thing you can do to keep that number high is strength training. Remain hydrated with water or seltzer. Think about 1 or 2 sustainable changes that you can do forever. Focus on fruits and vegetables. They have high nutrient, high water volume, and low in calories. You want to focus on the lean proteins, the healthy fats, and keep healthy food within reach. Obviously, that means it needs to be in your home and within eyesight. All right, another quick stretch. We're just gonna, I love this quotation. I'm just gonna do, again, about 1 minute of postural work. In my fitness classes that I teach, I do a ton of postural work, and even just a minute can be helpful. So let me back up, make sure you can see me. All right, just bring your hands in front of you, palms to the ground. Just start to pull your hands back, squeeze the shoulder blades, and bring it forwards. Okay, so you could obviously do this with dumbbells, not heavy ones, really light, 1, 2, 3, 5-pound dumbbells, something like that. I obviously can't see any of you guys, so hopefully you're able to do this and it feels good. Make sure as you're doing this, this isn't happening. You're not pulling this part of your shoulder up. They're all the way down and back. Keep going, but now thumbs up towards the ceiling. If you're in a chair like I am, make sure you're a little bit narrow. And then pull the hands back up to a right angle. Just start to drop them and lift. Pull the belly button in the whole time. In my fitness classes, that is something I will say, I don't know, 10 times a day in different classes. From here, just overhead. And then stop your hands. I'm going to show you from the side here. Squeeze your shoulder blades and release them. Everybody that I meet, including myself, and I work on this all the time, has poor posture. Especially if you work at a day and you're hunched over all the time. Let's do just one more and then relax. Good. The best thing that you can do for posture is to stretch your chest. So lie over a ball like this, or just on the floor, open up your chest, and to strengthen your back muscles. Okay. All right. Basic physiology of nutrition and exercise. So I'll probably have about 10 more minutes of speaking, and then I'll see if anybody has any questions. Activity requires glycogen. What is glycogen? Obviously, it's a storage form of carbohydrates in the body, and it's the quickest, most available energy source for the body. When you have enough, and this comes from carbohydrates, when you have enough, you have better endurance. You can put more intensity into your workout, which means you can burn more calories. You feel much better as you're working out. If you've ever had those days where you're working out, you're like, I just feel great today. Some of it's your sleep, some of it's your nutrition, some of it's your exercise. But if you do not have enough glycogen in your body, workouts do not feel good because your body's trying to get energy and it's just not available. So it has to use your protein or your fat for energy. And you have less mental fatigue. You also recover faster. So all good things. All right, cardiovascular training. We're going to talk about cardio versus strength training. Cardio, you burn more calories than strength training in the same amount of time for strength training, but it doesn't stimulate your muscles in the same way. It can be amazing for relieving anxiety, frustration, depression. But strength training will increase your metabolism short-term and long-term. Right after the strength training, your metabolism is a little bit higher than it would be after cardio for a little bit longer. And the more muscle you have on your body, the higher your metabolism is. Now, over the last 19 years of practice, I've seen this number change drastically. At one point, I saw that muscle is more metabolically active than fat by 26 times. Recently, it's a lot lower than that, but it's still much higher than fat, 3 times. What does that mean? So a pound of fat, just to exist on your body, requires 1 calorie, whereas a pound of muscle to exist on your body requires 3 times as many calories. Strength training also helps maintain or increase your bone mineral density. It takes up less space than fat. It's much more dense. So we tend to like the way we look better. And after the age of 30, we lose 3 to 5% muscle per decade, unless we strength train. If you strength train, you keep it on your body. If not, it's just steadily going down. So the bottom line is, ideally, you do both. You do some cardio and you do some strength training. Again, it has a lot to do with what you enjoy. I love strength training. I don't love cardio so much. So that's why every time I teach my classes, I do include cardio because it forces me to do it. But I do it in sort of a way that gets your heart rate up really quickly and then comes down, and then up and then down. It's a really efficient way of burning calories. So it's not going for a jog, getting your heart rate up, keeping it up for 20 minutes and then coming down. It's sort of like high intensity interval training. All right, so before workouts, bottom line is you need carbohydrate. You need enough fluid. So you should be well hydrated, and then enough carbohydrates. That's the ideal mix for before a workout. Especially if you're doing morning workouts, I get this a lot where people don't eat at all. Please try to eat something, even if it's half a banana. If you feel like, oh, I just can't stomach anything in the morning, something really simple, a handful of dry cereal, anything really simple, experiment with it, maybe a piece of dry toast or a little bit of that healthy butter, plant-based butter. If you're not at all worried about weight control, sometimes Gatorade's a good way to do it. I always encourage Gatorade if you're working out for an hour or more. But if it's a morning workout and you haven't eaten anything and you're not trying to lose weight, then a little bit of Gatorade can be a great thing before workout. It's absorbed really, really quickly. Here's just some examples of what you can eat before a workout: whole grains, fruits, vegetables, always fruits. Fruits are always going to be a good idea, unless you've done it in the past and you know it doesn't sit well in your stomach. All right, we talked about first thing in the morning. After a workout, you need carbohydrates again to replace what you used up. You use up all your glycogen. It doesn't store in your body. It's in your muscles and your liver, but it doesn't store on a day-to-day basis. We need to constantly take it in. Protein and fat are stored in our muscle and in our fat, but carbohydrate needs to constantly be taken in. So after a workout, we need more carbohydrate to replenish what we've lost. We need protein to repair our muscle cells, and we need hydration because we've been sweating. Ideally, within 30 minutes of finishing a workout, you have a little bit of a heightened ability to take carbohydrate and for your body to turn it into glycogen or glucose, and to take protein and to turn it into muscle. So within that 30-minute window, you're a little bit more efficient. Just some examples: turkey on whole wheat bread, cereal with milk, peanut butter and banana, chocolate milk, or a smoothie. Depends on where you are. If you're in a gym, maybe, you're not gonna have a smoothie in your bag. Maybe you can go buy one, great. Or maybe you just have like, something like a peanut butter and banana that's easy to pack. If you're somebody who sweats a ton, you do need to replace what you lose through sweat. So if you lose, and you don't have to do this all the time, but when I counsel marathon runners, I'll encourage this. Weigh yourself before you run or work out, and then weigh yourself after. For every pound that you lose through sweat, you need to replace that with 2 to 3 cups of fluid. Again, if you're doing strength workout, you're barely sweating, not a big deal. But if you are somebody who tends to sweat a lot more than others, it's nice to know what your sweat ratio is. Okay, so almost done here. This summary, eat a variety of foods, ideally, that you like to get the nutrients you need. Focus those foods on unprocessed foods, avoid excessive amounts of sugar, caffeine, and alcohol. Remember that 50-25-25 image for the plate. Half is fruits and vegetables, 1/4 lean protein, 1/4 whole grain carbohydrates. And choose 1 or 2 significant changes that are sustainable. That's the hardest thing to come up with. Something that you're willing to change, but that has a big enough impact so that you'll see either weight loss or, if you're trying to gain weight, whatever your goal is. Just a few things, 5 things to remember. Tips: think about your hunger. It's your best cue into how many calories your body needs. Drink enough water, eat enough fruits and vegetables, especially at dinner. Eat small amounts frequently. So if right now you have 3 big meals, make them smaller and spread it out. Find an exercise you like, hopefully a mix of cardio and strength. Maybe it's the kind of thing where you say, I'm just gonna do this. I don't love it, but I'm gonna include it because I know that I have to, and it's good for my body. The biggest mistakes I see is when people are too aggressive with their pulling back on foods for weight loss, especially, and it's not sustainable. Also, letting one bad day derail your whole progress. Just let it go. It's one bad day. A bad day is very easy to recover from. A bad week or a bad 2 weeks and month, that's much harder to recover from, obviously. I've seen a lot of people become obsessed with the scale or with counting calories. I never recommend that people hop on the scale more than once a week. I don't even own a scale. But if you're somebody who wants to know how much you weigh, I don't recommend doing it more than once a week, because when you do it daily, you see changes in fluid fluctuations, not in your actual fat loss. And in terms of writing things down, if it helps you, great. If you know you're becoming a little obsessed with it, scrap it. And maybe just focus on writing down the things that you're working on. Maybe it's, again, desserts or alcohol or soda, whatever it is. And the other mistake I see people making all the time is underestimating how many calories they're taking in or is in something. All right, here's my contact info. There's my email. If you ever want to set up an individual session, please feel free. I also teach 30-minute Zoom classes, and I have videos of them. I have live classes, but videos as well. And I have a YouTube channel, which has short fitness videos. I will have some nutrition videos on there as well, but right now it's 5 and 10-minute fitness videos. And I really encourage people to just start somewhere, just do a little something, add to it. It's not that 5 minutes a day is all you need, but I think it's a nice place to start.